Have we talked much about the Cantha expansion that got teased?
I mean,
Do you want to?
yeah, we can talk about that. The thing is, there's really not much to say. Like
Yeah.
we've seen a picture, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main speculation is when is it coming out, and I mean, I'm kind of guessing, yeah, 9 months time from now is when
That
I
seems
expect to see it
optimistic to me.
released. Oh, I hope not. I mean, if not, ArenaNet's in deep trouble. I mean, like they need to release this pretty quickly after the Icebrood saga is over. And the Icebrood saga's got 2 episodes left, maybe. Maybe they're gonna do another 4, but
Mhm.
I doubt it. I think they'll probably do 2, maybe 3 or something like that, like an extra bonus one. And then I think they wanna lead directly into it. Like, personally, I think they've actually been working on the expansion for a while. I don't think this is like a new thing. I think they were
Yeah.
probably working on it, even when they were, kind of working on they probably started working on it much earlier than we would even expect, right? Like,
Mhm.
this is a company, they've done this before.
I would guess immediately
Um,
after the layoffs, probably.
I would even say earlier than that. I think they were working on it before the layoffs,
Mm.
to be honest, before that. I think that it was probably one of the things they were kind of keeping there just in case something went really, really badly wrong, and in any case, they probably wanted to at least have something on the ground, like something for the groundwork for the
Sure.
new expansion
Sure.
for Guild Wars 2. But yeah, they obviously certainly started going full steam ahead on it after the layoffs, right? When
Mhm.
NCSoft said, "Right, you do expansion, make now, give me money," right? Um,
Pump up that gem store, baby. Give people a reason to
give me
log
that
in.
gem store money. Oh
It's gonna
yeah.
happen to me. Like, I'm gonna finish the story content, and I'm probably gonna buy shit in the gem store, and I haven't done that in over a year. Just need an excuse. So
Yeah.
what
Give me that
can
gem store.
oh, man, you know what else I'm really thirsty for that I hope the expansion can deliver? We need some new elite specs, dude.
Yeah, I think I mean, that with the Guild Wars 2, that's always the main selling point, right? Is adding elite specializations. That's the way it seems to me anyway, because they don't typically add like a really big content dump. They'll essentially release a lot of story content.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Um, but they won't release like 5 dungeons, right? If you look at a WoW expansion on
Mhm.
release, there'll be another like 6 dungeons or whatever, like how many there'll be. There'll be a load of extra dungeons they release
Mhm.
immediately. There'll be a new PvP map that they'll release. That doesn't happen with Guild Wars 2. Like Guild Wars 2 will release story, and then they'll
Mhm.
release a new mechanic of some kind, like mounts, gliding. I'm guessing player housing or something like this time around,
That
for
seems
the
like a really
expansion,
tough one. I thought
and then
thought
they'll
that
release elite specializations.
right. Yeah, so we got Gliding with Heart of Thorns in 2015. We got Mounts with Path of Fire in 2017. It's now been almost 3 years since we had a new elite spec or major mechanic like that. It'll probably be 4 by the time the Cantha expansion comes out. Yeah, I think that the need for elite specs is really, really quite desperate. It's one of the only things that, for me, offers really great replayability to the game's content.
Yeah, it's one of the really good things is that when it gets released, it essentially says, okay, right, you now have a completely new way to experience all the content that already exists. And it perfectly complements the way Guild Wars 2 works, right? Like with everything staying relevant, all
Mhm.
fractals, all raids staying relevant.
Mhm.
It means that you can now go, "Oh, yeah, great. We've got great news for you, right? You know that raid that you did 5 years ago? Well, now you can do like a different funky crazy build on it, right?" And that's
Right.
good. That's really good. And PvP is gonna be completely radically changed, like the metagame will be very, very different, because of that, right? That
Yeah,
will be
balances
another very, very
content for
different
those
experience.
players.
Right. Yeah. It's really, really good. Like that kind of stuff is content, as you say, for world versus world and PvP. So yeah, I think elite specializations are definitely gonna be the highlight, one way or another of the expansion.
Mhm.
But I really hope they do change their approach. I really want to see them also really focus on repeatable content. And in particular, I think I understand that they might not want to do a lot of instance content, but I think there's this really big misunderstanding that open world content can't be engaging, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people think that open world content has to be completely brain dead, right?
Mhm.
I do not think this is the case. And this is a rather really, really interesting thing, actually, that I want to kind of bring WoW Classic in here because this is a great, in my opinion. The WoW Classic raids are very, very easy. Okay. even by Guild Wars 2 standards.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? Now, this is a very important distinction here. It is very easy to die to a WoW Classic raid. Very easy to
Hmm.
die to a WoW Classic raid because they will punish you if you don't do it right and if you don't work as a team. If your healers aren't healing the tank, well, good luck. You're dead at that point, and everyone who's playing with you is dead too. And there's a really good example of this in Guild Wars 2 as well. Triple Trouble Worm. The
Hmm.
mechanics are very easy. You
Hmm.
pick up a bomb and you bomb the worm. You get eaten by the worm, right? Then you bomb the worm, right? You run around in circles and fill it, and pick up a cloud, and then you kill the worm, right? This is not difficult, but what it does require is it requires coordination and it
Hmm.
requires teamwork, right? Because if you don't work as a team, and you don't kill all the worms at the same time and you don't communicate, if we're going to do it, we can burn, we can burn, we can go, you will die, you will lose, right? And you won't kill all the worms, you won't get to the second phase, and you won't get your extra rewards. Very easy on an individual mechanical level, but legitimately challenging when it comes down to actual team play and coordination. And
Hmm.
this is something I've actually
It's
really come to
community building.
appreciate. Yeah, this is something I've come to appreciate about classic WoW, and 40-man raiding, is that you can have a very easy raid be engaging, right? You can have a very easy encounter still be engaging, right? And this is what I'm really after, right? I don't need everything to be like, oh my god, you need 500 APM to play this, right?
Hmm.
You've got to be mashing that keyboard to even have a chance to take down this boss. I don't get me wrong. I like that, right? I like to be really pushed on a mechanical skill. I think that's fun, right? But I understand that that's not for everyone, and
Hmm.
you can't have that necessarily in open world. But what I'm really looking forward in my game is for it to be engaging, for me to feel like what I'm doing actually does something. Is what I'm really looking for in my video gaming
Agency.
experience. Agency, exactly. And that is where I feel like almost every piece of content ArenaNet puts out fails. I feel like it just doesn't matter if I try or not, because I know I'm going to get there in the end. Right. But with Triple Trouble, dude, adrenaline is pumping. Okay, you know what I mean? And we got to get on voice and start yelling at people, right, to make sure we kill these worms at the same time.
Hmm.
This very old, very easy event, right? Every criticism, every mockery of the difficulty that I would jab the classic WoW people with is the exact same thing that could be levied at Triple Triple Worm. It's very easy,
Hmm.
right? But the thing is, it requires you to actually pay attention. There is a very clearly defined fail state, and if you don't execute, you lose,
Hmm.
right? And you have to try again. And
And
that
it's harsh
is what
punishment because you
makes
can't do it for another. It's not every
yeah,
2 hours, right? It's on a longer cycle, isn't it?
and that's what makes content engaging, right?
Yeah.
It's the possibility of failure, the requisite of having to actually pay attention and work as a team. Like that is what makes content engaging, and that
Hmm.
is why these games like Classic WoW, they can get intense, right? When you're doing these raids, it can get intense, right? And the same is true for stuff like Triple Trouble Worm, right? You can lose very easily if you aren't
Hmm.
careful, and that's a magical thing. It really, really is. More of that, please, in my video game. And this is something I really hope we see in open world in Guild Wars
Hmm.
6, because we know we're going to get new maps, probably 4 or 5 new maps, right?
Yeah.
And I want to see them
I think it's
actually
the
be
best
good.
part of Guild Wars is the new maps.
I don't want to see Path of Fire where the maps are just a joke, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and they're pretty, right? They're nice to look at, but they don't engage you, right? They're trivial. They don't. There's no challenge there whatsoever.
And
I don't want
there's
to see that.
very little reason to go back.
No.
Way less
Yeah, yeah,
repeatable than, like, even look at, like, the Heart of Thorns maps.
yeah.
Somehow, Heart of Thorns maps got designed to be very repeatable, and Path of Fire didn't.
Well, yeah, and I think that's because they moved away from like these big meta events with big bosses, right? Also, they completely killed the coordination, and this is something that you see in a lot of ArenaNet boss design these days. Is that what they do is you run around an environment a little bit, and then you encounter an HP sponge. You kill the HP sponge, then you loot the chests. Like that is
Mhm,
essentially what Guild Wars 2 open world content is before. But if you look at HOT, right, almost all of the maps require you to spread out, right?
Mhm.
and split into different groups. All of these groups have slightly different mechanics and slightly different responsibilities to engage with and to play. And if any one of those fail, then everyone fails, right?
Mhm.
Which is a much healthier way to design the game, in my opinion, and for repeatability and engagement.
Mhm. And if there's a possibility of failure, there's implied an incentive to cooperate, which
Yes,
also
exactly.
gives glue for communities. And that's what
Yeah.
I perceive a lack of whenever I try to play Guild Wars myself, where the community's at. And it's
Well,
funny.
yeah.
One
I
of the
mean,
only
this is
communities that
we
I've
go full
actually stuck
circle.
around in is this guild called Sand, which just runs dry top every week and just tier 6 dry tops. And I don't really play with him that much, but I'll drop in every once in a while because it's just fun to hang out. Like it's literally just a fun hour of bopping around, doing events, chatting with people, talking about Star Wars or whatever's going on in the world. I love that part of MMOs. I think that the socialization component, if the way that you design your MMO doesn't result in socialization, that's kind of one of the major places where I
Something
take issue.
something's gone wrong at that point.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
whenever I
completely.
spend like an evening inside of single player story instances, I kind of get that feeling of ick. Like, okay, this is fun, but um where does it go?
Yeah, it feels very out of place, I think, in an MMO. You know, a lot of single player content. It doesn't seem to gel with with the game itself, with what the game is supposed to be.
Mhm.
It is a very confusing experience. You do kind of wonder like what is this doing here again? Like why is this in the game?
Mhm.
And like and again, like this is why it's so difficult to critique Guild Wars 2, in my opinion, because it's not bad content. Quite the opposite. I enjoy playing through the story,
Mhm.
right? I liked it. I liked it. I have very little complaints. With the way the story goes, but I'm not playing Guild Wars 2 for the story. I'm playing it because I'm playing an MMORPG, and I want to play a massively persistent online world. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And when you kind of take that away, and then you're left with a lot of single player content, you go like, well, I mean, that was nice, but that wasn't what I ordered, right? You go to a
Mhm.
restaurant, right? You order a pizza, right? And you really like pizza. You're, dude, I could do with a pizza right now, man. Let's go. Give me that pizza, right? And then the waiter comes back and says, "Oh, here you are, sir," and brings you a delicious bowl of pasta. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, dude, I'll take it, right? I mean, I like pasta, I like that too, but that's not what I came for to this restaurant for.
Mhm.
I would really wanted a pizza, and they bring you some pasta. It's like, well, I mean, you can still enjoy the meal, right? I was like, well, I mean, you don't send it back for it. You don't want to cause a fuss, right? Which I mean, here in the
The
Guild Wars
metaphor
community,
breaks
we
down
do.
at some points.
We no, it's not breaking down. It still works, right? Because here in the Guild Wars 2 community, we like to make a fuss, but suppose that we don't, then it's still a good time, but it's not really what you were looking for, and you're always going to feel a little bit unsatisfied by your very fine bowl of pasta, but you really wanted that delicious pizza, with all those glorious toppings on, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what it feels like when you have this single player content in an MMORPG. The name really should give it away, in my opinion, I guess. But ArenaNet haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. Cantha.
Yeah. Cantha boys,
Jade
indeed.
C meta.
Yeah, like this is a weird thing actually. Like a lot of people, yeah, for my take on the expansion and stuff like that. This is going to be a spicy one. Like a lot of people are thinking that I maybe think that Guild Wars 2 is going to kind of like have this epic revival from the expansion. I think that's quite unlikely. I think that it will definitely reinvigorate the players and get some new players in there, but it's not going to like suddenly become MMO number one, like burst onto the top
No chance.
MMO scene, right? This is not how it works, right? Like that, there's not really much chance of that. As nice as it would be, it's fairly unlikely at this point that
Mhm.
something like that would happen. It's more that it's just going to keep people tided over. It's going to be it's going to be very good for
Something to
me
look forward
personally,
to.
like something to look forward to in the game, and something for me as a player to look forward to enjoying, which
Mhm.
is obviously important as well. From my perspective, anyway. But it's a really an interesting thing to talk about, actually, because I still do think that it would have been better for the overall game and for the company if Arena had succeeded in their other projects and didn't have to do the expansion. Because I
Mhm.
think ultimately what we're going to get with the expansion is just going to be more of the same to an
Yeah.
extent. It will
Yeah.
be exactly what we already have, and the game is going to progress, but it isn't going to progress in the way that in the actual sense of progression, right? Like it
Yeah, the
will,
story will move forward. We'll learn about the deep sea dragon,
yeah,
Steve.
but yeah, like the game isn't going to like magically transform into a completely other form. It
Mhm.
will stay as it is. Like Guild Wars 2 is what it is now, and it is very unlikely to change into anything else
Mhm.
along the line from here.
Mhm.
Like this is it, right? What Guild Wars 2 is now is what it always will be. And that's not a bad thing. It's just don't expect the game to transform with the expansion. I think a lot of people really expected a big change in direction, like a big big switch, like a big shakeup with Path of Fire, and we did get that in a way, but just not not exactly in the way
Not
we wanted,
really.
I suppose. Um,
Heart of
well, I think
Thorns, I think, really tried to do that.
it
And,
did, and Path of Fire did just in the opposite direction.
did
That
Arena
was
get
quite
burned by Heart of Thorns? That seems to be the narrative that I came away with.
That it's certainly a theory, right? I think a lot of people think that they really didn't like the reception to Path of Fire, to Heart
Mhm.
of Thorns rather, and they ended up kind of going, like, okay, right, now we're gonna have to do something a little bit different here, right?
Yeah,
And
they nerfed
what are we
it,
gonna do about
they
it?
changed the face of the company, and then they put out Living World Season 3, which speaks for itself.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the big theory is that that they saw the reaction like, oh my god, it's too hard. We need to nerf it into oblivion. Oh no, oh no, oh no, and well, there you have
Yeah,
it, I guess.
I don't know. Maybe there are people out there who would not play Guild Wars because open Hard Thorns open world is too hard. I go to the examples that I have in front of me, which is of course myself, where I wanted it to be hard. Um, like I told you earlier about my WoW vanilla experiences. I like having those totems of distinction and success. Like when I see a dude with a high warlord weapon, I know that guy did something like that. That's a meaningful piece of gear. It's a meaningful visual to see. Um, or like one of the ways that things I really cottoned on to in WoW Vanilla that no one else really got was Bone Reaver's Edge, which is a two-handed weapon that applies a really strong debuff that I figured out for my guild back in the day that it was really strong and we needed it in every raid. Also sword spec. No one understood how strong sword spec was back in the day. This shows you how fucking of a these were the boomer days.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
if you could think your way out of a paper bag, you were way out at the front. Um, and I have no idea where I was going with this tangent because I get so excited about talking about that shit. Uh, but yeah, Cantha. That'd be good to hear that
Cantha
music again.
Gaming. Oh well, it will be a really fun adventure. I am really looking forward to the expansion. I
Me
have
too.
absolutely no doubt that the game will be a lot of fun to play, and it will be a very exciting time for the game at that point.
Are you gonna play Burning Crusade?